All right, Black conservative patriot, let's give him a call. And joining us live with a little bit of difference in the time, but it's okay because we roll with the punches, Mr. Black conservative patriot. How are you, Mr. Patriot?
Doing great, Frank. Thanks.
Oh, dude, first of all, you have a fantastic channel. It's awesome to finally have you on the show, and I know you have a lot of people that enjoy the work you do, so it's great that we're finally teaming up for what I'm sure is going to be the first of many.
Yes, I agree with that.
So you're from my neck of the woods over here.
Yeah, I was born in Harlem, and PS 102, baby.
When'd you leave?
I moved to California when I was in junior high school.
Oh, okay. So then you know the area well. You a Yankee fan?
I'm not a baseballer. My dad is.
Okay.
I catch them every time they're out this way. It seems to be whenever there's a game, my dad will buy tickets, and by default, me and my boys will go and have a grandpa, dad, kid day. But I'm not a big baseball fan, unfortunately.
Well, this is a good year to be a baseball fan in New York, I have to say. So if there's ever a year to get your juices flowing again, just saying, it might be a good time to revisit. But, dude, it's so good to have you on. I can't wait to talk shop a little bit. Now, I want to start this off just by saying Andrew Klavan, who I follow closely, I love his podcast, and I always loved his work, even before he had a podcast. He had said very concisely last week that last week was the week, even though it's a little redundant, it was the week that the media shamed itself. Number one, especially since what we're seeing right now is that more and more, especially the New York Times, but it's the entirety of the media. We know that the New York Times and the FBI have been working close together. We know that CNN has a very special relationship with our national intelligence team and James Clapper and Andrew McCabe. We know how very closely tied in together both the agencies of our government, the administration of our government, and the media is at this point. But what we're seeing now is not only are they friendly, but they have been tipping their hand as to how every time there's going to be a major leaking or breaking story in the way that these investigations are going, or how we learn about how these investigations were handled, or how the government just runs behind the scenes, there is always some kind of damage control that is released through these media outlets beforehand to start spinning it again. Case in point. First, we're told that it's the dossier that started this investigation. Once we realize that the dossier is nonsense, we hear, no, it's George Papadopoulos. Then we're hearing about Crossfire Hurricane. And now, like we were saying before on the phone, at one point we were called kooks for saying that there was any spying going on. Now Clapper is saying it's a good thing that there was spying going on. They're trying to help everybody. What goes through your mind with all this stuff?
Well, it's the spin that's always been there. Not to beat a dead horse, but if you go back to obviously Operation Mockingbird, there's been, it pretty much works out this way. The outlets that you described are just mouthpieces for the deep state intelligence community, and then you have like the Washington Post, which is in bed with the State Department. So when exactly like you said, when something's about to come through, they all go in to damage control. They're given the talking points, and I'm sure, Frank, you may have seen the video where it shows all the different news outlets throughout the country saying the same exact script, word for word. So they're told what to say. I mean, I don't know why we have this reverence, especially for we call them journalists, these news personalities that we see on CNN, Fox, whatever the case may be. A majority of them are just actors. They're faces in front of a camera reading a script. And then many of the news outlets, the Times, the Post, et cetera. You look at the WikiLeaks, you look at the John Podesta emails. We're only getting a glimpse of the coordination between these bad actors in the government, shadow government, deep state, whatever you want to call them.
Absolutely.
And the supposed journalists.
Yeah, you said actors, and it's so amazing because just what they cover. Like you think about Don Lemon, you think about you think about what's his name, the other one, the Silver Fox. What's his name?
Anderson
Yeah,
Cooper.
Anderson Cooper. These guys that go out there every night, Joe Scarborough and his girlfriend. These people that go out on the television every day, and they have this news. And it's not just so much that they're giving you information. There's an act that goes along with it. Everybody with the quivering lips. They cry every other week. You would think, when I watch them cry, it's the most amazing thing. And when they actually shed tears, I'm saying to myself, they are crying as if they're watching footage of, the Dachau or Auschwitz or something like that. And if it was really that bad, how the hell is it that the next week they're not crying? I don't understand, but the acting is just, the tells are amazing.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. My wife is from southern Mexico, right? And she has a joke that when it comes to telenovelas, the Mexican soap operas, an actor is judged by how quickly and how on the dime they can start crying. And I think that's the same motto that these Mockingbird puppets live by. You got to remember, people that are in this realm, whether it's entertainment, whether it's news, they live in this bubble where it's always like they're congratulating each other, giving each other awards, and trying to please each other and one up each other. And at this point, it's almost comical looking from the outside in. They're in some bubble thinking that they're going to touch and influence people with their false emotions. A lot of people are waking up. Not everyone's awake, but there's a lot of people waking up now. They could just see the charade, the farce, the circus that it really is.
Well, you talk about the false emotions too. You think about people like Kathy Griffin. You think about people who show up to the
fake outrage.
Yeah, you show up to the press dinner. Like, first of all, no one told Kathy Griffin to hold up a bloody head that's supposed to be the effigy of our president. Mm-hmm. Holds up a bloody head. She suffers backlash from public. I mean, she wants to put this out in public. She suffers a backlash from it, and she starts crying about how the president broke her. It's like, stop. Just stop this. And the other thing, too, is when you say, I love how, like, for example, Chris Cuomo just this past week, he told Rudy Giuliani that he really does think about it from time to time, that this president could really throw him in jail at any moment, which is absolutely ridiculous. And they feign this act of being oppressed and being put under enormous pressure from a president, and as if they're really living in Soviet Russia or something like that. In the meantime, they go to this the press correspondence dinner or something like that, and you see when they go up there and they have their shot, they congratulate each other for being victims, and then they come out with the most vile attacks. Now, listen, I'm not the one to shy away from dirty humor or anything like that, but people who are oppressed, they don't have this kind of gusto. This is all an act. They are in control of everything, and they're managing perspective. I think one thing that has been cracking for them lately, though, is the idea over what demographics they control and whose loyalty will be unquestionable. And the first thing I would have to say is that within the last couple of weeks alone, the loyalty of black males has been pretty shaken. And not to say that there's been a total turnaround, but there's a crack in the facade. Now, as a black male living on the West Coast, what have you been seeing just from the media, and what have you been seeing around you? Has there been anything that's been lightening? Not so much that there's a party switch, but that people are starting to think a little bit more independently, because I don't care about parties.
Yeah, no, the two-party, that's just a false economy, right? As far as, here's one thing that I say on my channel. I speak for me, right? I really can't speak for other black individuals. That's unfair, because we're all individuals, right? I'm a sovereign individual unto myself, and I think for myself. That being said, obviously I'm a black male, and I have a perspective as a black male, and I have black friends and black family members. Before the run-up to Trump, there were a lot of us, well, not me, I'm not really in that. I've always been very, very vocal. I'm half black, half Puerto Rican. It's just I was raised to be loud and be heard. But a lot of folks just, in the black community, a lot of black males have actually been supporting Trump, have liked Trump, but they've been like, they haven't come out of the closet, if you will. They feign that they're still on the Democrat side, but they voted for Trump. I mean, I can tell you in Harlem, for instance, Trump always had a very, very good reputation. I mean, he hired a lot of black people to work on his construction projects on Lower Manhattan and a lot of his projects. You actually, I mean, if people really want to see it, go and Google and look at old footage of Trump, building and doing things. You'll see a lot of black and Hispanics. You'll see a lot of women, right? Obviously, that's against the narrative that they were trying to portray before the run-up. But blacks have been supporting Trump a lot, not en masse, up to the election. Now, with Kanye West and Candace Owens and other folks, people feel a little bit more emboldened to come out. And it was just a matter of time, really, at this point.
It's funny. Well, it's not funny. It's actually sad that we have to refer to it as coming out now. It really is. But that's the other thing too. Dude, thanks so much. I'm serious. I need help right now. But that's the other thing too, is that you look at and I'm glad that you mentioned the hiring practices, especially here in New York, because that was the pride of all this stuff. Not only that, but just knowing that he was a guy that was really got down on the ground floor, made sure that people on the ground, those were the most important people. That's the way I live my life too. I make sure that I get to know who the parking attendants are before I get to know who the head of any organization is. I want to know who the people in the kitchen are before I know who the hell the managers are. Those are the people who take care of you, and they know what actually is going on. And it's really amazing to see all that get lost in just to be offered up to a this idea of a very, very short-sighted political objective, and it's actually backfiring on them. So it's great to have that perspective on there too. I'm grateful to have you on for that too. And as far as this other thing too, you want to talk about things that have been backfiring, even just the MS-13. This is another thing that happened recently with the media, especially when I was away. I noticed that there was this big backlash when they were President Trump was addressing how MS-13 was being cracked down on and whatnot, and he started referring to them as animals and subhumans as they are. I mean, it's one of the most violent gangs out there. We've known about MS-13 just through Discovery Channel documentaries on prison life and all that stuff and who's the most violent. I've known about MS-13 for years before Trump. All of a sudden, he calls them animals and says that and accentuates how he's cracking down on them. And the media goes out of their way to equate them to immigrants. Equate them to immigrants so that they can say that Trump was calling immigrants from below the border, from south of the border, animals. That he was, it was beyond, and it didn't work. Which is another thing, which is why they just keep shaming themselves. But, I mean, what about you? Do you have any insight on MS-13 and all that stuff, especially having a wife from south of the border as well? What's that like?
Well, essentially, you would ask, Frank, because I just want to make a quick point that kind of follows this when you're talking about the crying and the overacting by the so-called TV journalists. It's an act, right? It's the same thing of victimization. So there's a huge stretch when this Mockingbird media, this legacy media, is trying to make MS-13 a victim. Now, MS-13, like you, I've known about him for years. I actually, I used to work for Arthur Andersen, and I had nothing to do with Enron, by the way. And I had a manager, and I started a business together. And this manager was from El Salvador. And we went, we made trips down to San Salvador in El Salvador, and we made presentations. We were drumming up business, so we're meeting with businesses, getting clients, and it was going really well. And there was a client that met with my partner, and she was a female, and offered to take her home. And she got in the car and went home with this individual. Now, I'm not going to say who this individual is, but let me just say she's very well connected in El Salvador. I went to the house of her uncle's house, and I've never lived so lavishly. I was surfing on a private beach and having people come out and bring me food, to the beach. It was crazy. So that's the kind of caliber of family that she comes from in El Salvador. And when she got a ride from this gentleman who took her home, nothing happened, but her family went into a rage. This is about 15 years ago, all right? Her family went into a rage because she was not aware of the danger of MS-13 and how she could have been kidnapped, she could have been raped, it would have been extortion, and all the terrible things that happened. That's when I first learned about MS-13. They started in LA, but they obviously are Salvadorian. And that's when I really found out about how their network works across borders. 15 years ago, her family was worried that she could have been grabbed and trafficked and raped and killed, and they would have extorted money from the family for ransom, but she probably would not have been delivered alive, even if they had paid.
And of course, you're like, just to accentuate what you just said, that's 15 years ago. And
yes.
Now you have 15 subsequent years after that of pretty much open border policy across a few presidencies, and just millions of people that have come in unvetted. And not necessarily that they come that people, even though that it's happening, people come in already as initiated gang members. But once you come in and you have no skills, you are illiterate, you're really disaffected as far as not knowing what American culture is and where you fit into it, because you came in such a bad, disadvantageous way. But when you're already here and you're trying to look for a way to step in, of course, gang activity is one way that you find a place where you belong, where you find a place where you have peers that you identify with, that speak the same language, that do the same things. You can make money without having to so that you can skirt the system of identifying yourself. You can make money that way, and of course, you leave that cycle to 15 years. I mean, that's an entire generation. So
it is.
So
it is. And if you allow me to tell you, it's actually
Please.
more nefarious than that. When they had this open border, unaccompanied minor, caravan, under Obama, when we had this so-called unaccompanied minor crisis, Frank, was actually more nefarious than that. It wasn't just a matter of these kids coming in. The Obama administration knew these were MS-13 people, and for some folks it's going to sound conspiratorial and crazy, but the MS-13 is an arm of the deep state. They are an assassin arm of the deep state. Not every single MS-13 person is, but they don't know. Once you're initiated into this gang and you're low level, you don't know all the machinations. You don't know all of the going-ons of MS-13. But MS-13 was brought in specifically, or partially specific. Well, specifically, one of their functions that Obama administration and the deep state had MS-13 come in is so they can use them as an assassination arm of the deep state. Well, and that's a reality of MS-13.
Not for nothing, but MS-13 has been pretty strongly linked inside of the Seth Rich story.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, there's just
yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you saw this story in Washington Times, where a 40-year-old MS-13 gang member here was sentenced in Massachusetts to 40 years. And what's the name of this cat? He goes by El Animal, the animal. That's his name. He's an MS-13 guy, and his name is El Animal, the animal. So once again, damn it, Trump is right.
It's you know what it is? It's really, really fascinating to me, because I was thinking about this the other night. Ever since, and I try to analyze this. I know that people that watch the show or listen to the show probably think I'm just the biggest Trump fanboy, but I really am not. I really am not. I sit back and I'm a fan of things that I believe are good for, or push us in the right direction. I'm a fan of things that are humorous and ironic. And this man has brought on a hurricane of irony, of good humor, of pushing back against political correctness, and of course some things that really push us in the right direction as far as reinstating some sense of federalism and whatnot. And this is one of the things that I think has been the most fascinating, that ever since he coined the term fake news, I mean, it has been like the media has fallen over themselves, tripped over themselves to try to prove that they're not fake news. And all they have done is solidified the fact that all they are is fake news. And I don't know if you remember this, but in the 1990s, Norm Macdonald, he took over Weekend Update on SNL for a while. You remember that?
Yep, absolutely.
Though every Saturday night that he went live on SNL, he would say, "Thank you, I'm Norm Macdonald, and now the fake news." And it's funny to me because it's just like this is also the reason why that comedy is dead, because the place we used to go to for comedy is reality now. And it's just it can't get any better how we're just swimming in irony, how the president calls these people animals. It even comes down to that. I mean, that's something you can't even plan, and it's just happening as if it's just like the universe is coalescing around him. You know, he calls these people animals. The press goes nuts, falling over themselves, trying to say that Trump was calling immigrants animals. They backfire in that respect, and then somebody, a member of MS-13, gets 40 years in prison, and he goes by the nickname Animal. It's just you can't script it.
No, you can't. And one thing I love about Trump, once again, it could be that New York side of me, right? That's just is the master troller that he is, and how he puts them on the defensive. They're not used to that. They're freaking the hell out because he has totally changed. He's flipped the script on them, and they're used to, getting their marching orders at 4 a.m., saying what they need to say, whatever the State Department or the Deep State Intelligence tells them to say, whatever the spin narrative is, and everyone's okie dokie. Everyone goes for it. Bush, then Clinton, then Bush, and then Obama. So they've got these several administrations of the same thing. And then comes Trump, an outsider, not just an outsider, but he knows how they play the game. And he gets them. He gets under their skin. He plays with them. He gets in their head, and he puts them on the defensive. And that's just masterful. I know a lot of people say Trump is about 4D chess and that kind of stuff. I think sometimes people overblow it, maybe give him more credit for 4D chess than and right. Don't get me wrong. I am a Trump fan. I campaigned for him. I like Trump, but he's not infallible and he's not perfect. But I'm telling you, like you said here, I mean, this is providence. This is serendipitous. I don't know what you would call it, but this is not 4D chess. This is just the universe aligning, saying, oh yeah, well, how about this little bit of news? And once again, Trump gets proven right. So maybe at the end of the day, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out that a former opponent of Trump's dad actually did kill JFK.
I don't know. That would be amazing if that actually came down. It just keeps getting better. So now, what exactly? And once again, for everybody that's just tuning in, we have Black Conservative Patriot on with us. Go check out his channel. He's been a fantastic guest so far. Great friend of the show already. And outside of that, we're talking about media foibles. We're talking about MS-13, we're talking about the flip-flopping and the shielding and the working hand-in-hand with the intelligence services here. And once again, just to put it out there, it is not the intelligence community as a whole. It is the people at the top. I mean, I feel worse and worse for the people, the good cops out there who always want to go out there and try to get the bad guys and put them away. And then, of course, you have these cops that abuse their power, authoritarians that abuse their power that we see on all levels, local levels, and now the very top of the food chain. But then again, the fish rots from the head down. And
you don't get to the top, Frank, unless you're willing to play ball and join the cabal and play by their rules. Right. So yeah, it's not just a matter of the top, the fish heads thinking you don't even get to the head if you don't already stink.
Exactly. So with all that being said, where do you put most of your attention? Like, what storyline is the most compelling to you now? What situation is most compelling? And yeah, that's right now. What do you have your eye on the most?
Right now, what I'm looking at and investigating, you're probably in the same position I am. I wish I could just do this full time, just Absolutely. All I could do is just research everything. I wish I could clone myself and have one of myself researching the other, and then the other one of myself making videos for everything my clone researched. But what I'm looking at now is I'm trying to figure out this game plan that's happening, because, those of us who are red pill in the woke community, whatever you want to call it, that in the truth movement, that have known everything that was fishy from 9/11 or before, whatever the case may be, we've known a lot of this stuff, in the past. And it's amazing to hear, like, even people like, I don't really listen to him I hardly ever listen to him, but I tuned into Rush Limbaugh the other day, and he actually used like deep state and shadow government, all the stuff that we quacks for decades have been, terms we've been using for a long time. And so I'm seeing this, like, this switch over, or this this slow but sure turning of the page where all the things that seemed, conspiracy theory wacko in the past is becoming self-evident, almost kind of like an Oppenheimer thing where what is it, that first it's violently opposed, then at the end it becomes self-evident. So what I'm trying to see is how has this shift happened so far, and what can I do as a YouTuber and as a person in the truth community to do my part to really turbocharge that, to supercharge it, so that we can wake more people up. And that's kind of what I'm concentrating on, is how can we move masses of people into realizing, into waking them up, into realizing, hey, this is what's really going on. And not only is this what's really going on, but a lot of people need to be educated on the Constitution, on freedom, on liberty, on, that we're a republic, that we are not a democracy run by popular vote and popularity, because then, New York and California would rule everything. So, we have to educate people almost on what the basic, on how our republic is under attack. So that's kind of where my focus has been, how I can, as one person, as part of this larger movement, can help people, wake them up to what the reality is and how we're being attacked, or how we have been attacked. But I'm positive, Frank. We're in a point where people are waking up, and I think we're in a good place. But I'm an impatient man. I like to see it happen faster and do my part to kind of expedite that, if you will.
And I think that's why we click so much, because I have been completely on that same page, where none of this stuff matters if we don't fix the culture. And that's the only thing that I concentrate on. And in American culture is a culture of rugged individualism. Now, I know we have less and less frontiersmen out there, but I'm just saying, in general, know your Constitution, know federalism, know our history, know why that matters. And if you know that, then all of the things that are causing problems in the world, all of the things that have led to our military being deployed around the world, like it is the plaything of the international community and of central bankers around the world, all of that goes away. Your suspicion of the Federal Reserve and the way that our monetary system is set up, all of that goes away. All of our problems go away if you start reconnecting to the culture that we've been disconnected from, in order for these problems to take root. So it's so important what you're doing. I believe it to be the most important thing to do, because the second that we make that reconnection is the second that everything else becomes simpler, and it's the second that all the negative things that we believe we're involved in around the world, and all of the connections that we have to nefarious forces and people around the world, become severed, whether they like it or not, and whether or not the people at the bottom really know about all of these grand conspiracies to take over the country. I always say it's the hardest thing in the world to even get somebody to understand what they've just seen from Project Veritas. Project Veritas comes out with videos about Planned Parenthood, or how, the DNC is bussing in people to start fights at Trump rallies, and people cannot even process what they see on film. I don't believe that they're going to be able to process grand conspiracies to consolidate the world into a one world government. So without trying to bludgeon people and starting with the end is nigh type of stuff, and selling this conspiracy that people would never be able to process, just sell them our history, a history of independence,
exactly,
a history of skepticism against central power, a history of disdain for centralized power, and thinking locally and acting locally. If you do that, then you don't need to sell people the hidden history of the world, because it just wouldn't matter anymore. It would lose its power.
Yeah. I like you said, we're on the same page of this. The first battle is educating people on the Constitution, on liberty, on individual freedoms, right? And then when they buy into the fact that the United States of America was founded by people that wanted to escape the elites of Europe, and then all the immigrants that came from Asia, from Africa, from other places, they wanted to escape whatever despotic government they had over there, or whatever tyranny they had over there. They wanted to come here. That is the essence of America, right? That's the melting pot. The melting pot is leaving tyranny behind and coming to freedom. Once people their eyes are open to, this is a place that's anti-tyranny, then they can start to see the tyranny around them, and then they kind of wake up themselves when they realize these are the freedoms that God has given you, that the Constitution, the Constitution recognizes, and the Bill of Rights recognize these God-given freedoms and liberties that we have, and then people go, wait a minute, these are my freedoms. Wait a minute, they're being under attack. Yes, exactly. That's why the NRA. That's why the Second Amendment. That's why freedom of speech. That's why we're against censorship. That's why we're against these deep state actors, penetrating the Trump, candidates, Trump as a candidate, because we're supposed to be free. And if people can realize that they're not being free anymore, I think that's what will wake them up. I mean, they have to have the pain, and then they'll look for the Band-Aid. But if they don't even know they have the pain, the Band-Aid does them no good.
Well, because we've been anesthetized. We've been anesthetized by people like Jake Tapper, by people like Don Lemon, who have sold everybody a bad bill of goods. But the great thing is that they're losing their grip. I just saw that Jake Tapper, since last year, has lost 32% of his audience at CNN. They're losing their grip. And the way you were saying this before about how you wish you can do it, full time. It's getting to a point now where I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think I might be able to do it full time. And the reason why you and I are in a position where we're going to be able to do this full time and dedicate our life to our passions and having conversations and trying to just pull people in and just immerse ourselves in this is because of one thing, and it's something that I usually thank people over and over again who contribute to me on Patreon, especially when I see people pledge to the Patreon that support maybe 6 or 7 other creators, people just like you, people all over the place. I say to myself, this is why we're winning. This is why the tide is turning, and this is why the mainstream media is dying. Because when you go to Optimum Online or when you go to Verizon, you say, I need a cable package, you have no choice but to pick up CNN. CNN is played on every airport around the world, and that is how they have their viewership. On the other hand, what we're seeing now is in the new media, people are choosing what they want to give their money to, and they are finally, for the first time ever, because crowdfunding is a recent phenomenon, for the first time ever, people who would have been shut out by mainstream media are now being given a chance to be able to sustain themselves and contribute to the conversation in ways that we never have been. So I want to thank you, Black Conservative Patriot, for being on this show for the first time, for the first of many. You are a great voice of reason out there, and it's just been
Thank you.
It's been so great to have you on, man. Thank you for being with us tonight.
No, thanks for having me on.
And please plug all of the URLs and all your channels. Let everybody know where to find you.
Well, you can just find me on YouTube, Black Conservative Patriot. Interestingly enough, I've gone to my personal account and my children's account, and sometimes we put in Black Conservative Patriot in in YouTube, and I won't come up as a channel. They'll show you videos of Black Conservative Patriot this or that, but not the actual channel. So if you just go to YouTube /C/Black Conservative Patriot, I'll come up, and I'm on Twitter at Black_C_Patriot, and on Instagram and Facebook at black.conservative.patriot. But if you find my YouTube channel, you can go in the description in any video and find my links to my other social media.
Thanks a lot, man. And for everybody out there, if you're especially on Twitter, if you follow me on Twitter, a couple of my recent tweets actually has Mr. Patriot over here tagged. So if you want to just go to some of my recent tweets, you'll find them eventually. And there you go. Hey, it's great having you on, man. It'll be very short before we have you on again.
Absolutely, Frank, baby. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Take care, brother man. Be well.
All right. Ciao.
There you go. I call him brother man, and he says ciao. That was interesting. That was interesting. The Italian says thank you, brother man, and the black guy says ciao. That was interesting, completely unscripted. That's why this show is amazing. What have I done? What have I done?